Good morning, moms. Good morning. It's Tuesday. It's not my normal day, but here I am, and I'm coming to you live today. I'm sure that most of you have had times, as I have, and I still do, where the people in my life can sometimes be the hardest people to love. The ones that I love the most just trigger everything in me, and when they are not behaving well or behaving the way I want them to, then inside I'm in turmoil and there's no love left for me to give. And the reason I'm talking about this today is not, well, it has to do with one or both of my kids at any given time, but it's also because my mom recently fell and broke her hip. And she's been living in assisted living for a while, and her personality is such that she really doesn't join a lot. And that bugs me like crazy. I want certain things for her, and to me it seems like she's being really passive and not participating, and it makes me aggravated. So when we talk, if she's not participating in things, that's what I want her to do. And so I start to lose patience, or I've also become the go-to person, and I'm starting to resent that and to feel like, oh, if only, you would rely more on the staff where you live. That's what they're there for. Why do you keep coming to me? So this person who I absolutely adore, I'm starting to feel annoyed with, and that doesn't feel good. What I've noticed, though, is that when we don't talk about her tasks of daily living, that's an expression they use for evaluating how much assistance someone needs, but it really fits here. When she's not putting in more effort with that, or she has physical therapy and then doesn't practice when the PT isn't there, and all I want is for her to get stronger, and it's making me crazy to watch this decline. So the person I love so much, I'm not feeling very loving towards her. And it doesn't feel like she's being loving towards me, even though she is. She appreciates everything that I do for her, truly. But as soon as that impatience comes in, that relationship changes. And the time that I spend with her changes drastically, because now I'm in a bad mood. I'm in a bad mood, and that's all I can see, and it's really hard for me to snap myself out of that funk. Just get with the program, Fern. And then you also have these voices in your head that say, but you're supposed to love this person all the time and love them unconditionally. Well, honestly, unconditional love is something that we aspire to. It's not really easy to do, and those people who talk about it so glibly as a concept, I think that's very misleading and instills a lot of guilt in us. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about your children. Unconditional love is great, but it's not realistic to have it all the time. But I digress. So I've got this relationship with my mom, and what I've discovered recently is that when we do things and talk about things that have nothing to do with the things that I'm worried about, or the things that she's worried about, we do so much better. I mean, there have been times when I've been so impatient with her, and she can sense it for sure, and she's cried, and oh my God, that's the last thing in the world I wanted for my mother, especially somebody who is in a relatively fragile emotional and physical state these days. So when we stay away from those topics that are troublesome, it's not that I'm avoiding anything, it's that I'm trying to make the most of the time that I have with her. So we sing, we laugh, we tell jokes. Actually, she wants to know more about what's going on with me. How's my coaching business? How are the kids? What's our social life like? And this is her way of getting out of the predictability of her days, and sometimes the lack of purpose of her days. And when we're talking about things like that, or if she calls and I just say, let it go, Fern, just find something else to talk about. We don't have to be going through that checklist of what are you doing? Did you do this? Why don't you do that? What this boils down to is when I lower my expectations and this is a good time to be lowering your expectations. When I lower mine, we have such a great time. The tension is gone. The love is there. The fun, good times, affectionate times are there. Now, what does this have to do with your kids? You knew I'd be getting to that, right? When your children are acting their least lovable, and I've had that in my life more than I care to talk about, most recently with my daughter, who is an adult, but there have been some big things going on with her. When all I can focus on are the checklists of her life, are these things getting done? Did you make a list of that? What have you checked off today? That's when things get really tense. And I can get responses back. Sometimes she's very good at keeping that to herself, but oftentimes I'll get, Mom, you need to just step back. It's like the cop who says, step away from the car, ma'am. That's what I need to do. Because number one, with our children, it's not so much our business anymore. We have high expectations, but if they're not meeting them, the fact is that I don't have control over a lot of things that go on in people's lives. I don't have control of my own life half the time. So when my children are not living up to my expectations, I have to just back away a little bit because the mood gets really heavy and burdened. And then it feels like if we don't talk about that checklist, that there's nothing else to talk about. And if there's nothing to talk about, then there's distance that we've created. And disconnection is the opposite of love. Love is connection. All the rest is lack of connection. All right. So when your children are being less than stellar, when their behavior is driving you crazy, that's really when they need your love the most. And what does love look like in moments like that? And I know I talk a lot about boundaries, and those are important, but there are times when you need to put that aside and work on reestablishing love and trust. And when you feel the least loving towards your child is exactly when they need more from you. So if we put boundaries to the side for the moment, sorry, we're going in and out of the light here. What can you do to increase loving feelings and your child's feeling of connection to you? Because you will always feel that love, and most of the time you know what's underneath the things that trigger you, but your kids are really confused all the time, especially when they're teenagers, and many of them don't know how to regulate their emotions or to self-regulate. So one of the things you can do is just leave all those other topics to the side. When they're driving you nuts because they haven't done their homework, stop focusing on the homework for a little while. Just be with them. Leave the expectations behind and just accept that moment for what it is and for what it can be. A relationship, love, energy, positive energy flowing back and forth between the two of you. I know when I do that, it's like all of a sudden I can take a breath and say, okay, this person in front of me, you're more important right now than being right or wrong. You're more important right now than the vision that I have for you, because that vision is out there somewhere. We need to focus on this moment and just be in that loving state with each other. So move away from your checklist, move away from your expectations. And the other thing that you can do when you feel the most disconnected or you feel like you have nothing to talk about because there are all these elephants in the room between you, is you pull up old memories. And I have seen this work 100 times in my own life and with the moms that I work with. Go back into your memory. And this is something you can plan to do too. Go back and look through old pictures and old videos and, souvenirs from trips that you've taken and little tchotchkes that remind you of things. And this is what you come back to your child with and you say, I was just looking through some photos, and I found that picture of when you used to do that silly little thing. I mean, I have one where my daughter is sitting, she's about 15 months old. She's sitting in the doorway of the bathroom with a washcloth. Big deal, right? Well, this 15-month-old could entertain herself for 15-20 minutes at a time and never need my attention. So she would take this washcloth, she'd fold it in half, then she'd fold it in half again, and then she'd shake it out and laugh, and she'd start all over again. So that's something that we talk about. Also, I'm somebody who really enjoys quiet, and she was a chatterbox, and she just never stopped, especially in the car. So there she was in the back seat, and she was chattering away, and every so often I would look back and go, Sarah, could you just keep it down for a couple minutes? And she couldn't have been more than 3 years old at the time. So you just let mommy, let's just sit quietly until we get to the store. And that would last about 10 seconds, and then she'd be at it again. Well, one day she got the message, and all I had to do was turn my head, and she said, okay, mommy, I be quiet now. And that is something that we talk about all the time. It comes up when one of us is just chattering away and having a blast, and the other one may be going, okay, when are you going to be done, right? But okay, mommy, I be quiet now it's just a beautiful thing that we go back to all the time. So these are the kinds of things that build connection when you start to share things that are outside of your worries or that happened before the time that life became difficult. Right? So stay away from the difficult subjects for a little while, and or carefully inject every so often something that brings you closer, and that will be a shared memory. Or maybe it was that trip we went on with Grandma. Do you remember the time when? And all of a sudden you will find that there is a softening because your child no longer feels attacked, criticized, judged. Like all you care about are grades and college transcripts and extracurricular activities. No. Take all that out of the picture and just love the person in front of you. Okay? So I hope that gives you something to work with the next time you're feeling really aggravated, and you may go through that aggravated time. But make sure that afterwards you pull out something, some little nugget that brings you closer. And come back at any quiet time and say, hey, you know, I was remembering when. And if you do this long enough, you're going to get your kid back. Right? And he's going to come to you and trust you and love you back and be lovable. All right? That's it for today. Keep your eyes open for the event that's coming up on April, I almost said August, April 11th in Little Falls. It's going to be step in or step aside, knowing how, when, and why to get involved with your child's problems or not. Also remember that if you are really struggling, if you could use a shoulder to cry on or somebody to help you walk through a situation, private message me, email me at fern@fernweiss.com. And I will be happy to do a complimentary consultation with you. Imagine an hour that's all about you with no interruptions and no expectations. Okay? Take care. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.